In partnership with Singing Hills Memorial Park, welcome to Journey Home Radio, discussing the most important topics around life's most sacred goodbye. This is Journey Home Radio.
Hello and welcome to Journey Home Radio, where farewell meets forever. I'm your host, Iris Wise, and today I'm joined by my general manager at Singing Hills Memorial Park, Scott Prine, and we're going to go over a couple important things. Today we're going to be talking about some documents that are absolutely necessary when the loved one passes, and just to talk about how to keep your kids stress-free and find that financial burden on your funeral plans. And I'm going to let Scott talk a little bit about his background in this profession and how he started. Just a brief little intro from him. So Scott, I'm going to let you go ahead and share your experiences with us.
All right. Thank you, Iris. Again, my name is Scott Prine. I'm very excited to be here today as a guest with Iris and all of the co-hosts that are on Journey Home Radio. My background started actually as a family member needing to make arrangements for a loved one, and really that introduced us to the cemetery and funeral world. So through that experience and different experiences with the staff, I just really thought that this was a good calling for me, and it really did allow me to give back to the community in a meaningful way. So that was my start in this profession.
Yeah, and how long have you been in this profession?
About 15 years in the cemetery funeral profession.
Wow.
Our history actually goes back to about 30 years in the state liquidating.
Okay, wow. So Scott is here to talk about where we're going to start with that journey. So Scott and I have been professionals here in the funeral industry, and we see often where, parents have failed to have that discussion about what they wanted, and we always recommend having those talks before someone becomes terminally ill and when you still have your mind clear. So we're going to start about what to do when somebody first passes. Who's the first person we would contact?
Exactly. So there's different scenarios when somebody does pass and how you would proceed. So the first one and most common would be if somebody was in a hospital or a hospice and you're under doctor's care. When that time comes, then it obviously would be contacting the mortuary that the family had set up, ideally in advance. And we would go ahead and pick up the loved one and start the process that we have internally. Some other scenarios that would happen is, for example, somebody was in an accident.
Mm-hmm.
If there was an accident, then there needs to be an investigation, whether it's a car, whether it's outside of a hospital or a hospice setting. Mm-hmm. Another one would be if you were at home and you just passed from natural causes. Mm-hmm. If you weren't under a doctor's care in your home, then that would require a medical examiner, and it takes a little bit more, a few extra steps before we can bring that loved one into our care. So really where a person passes either involves a doctor and they're under that care, or mm-hmm. it involves the medical examiner.
Right. A huge thing that I really wanted to address today, because this document has been coming up a lot in conversation within the office and within a lot of our clients. It's the Advance Health Care Directive. An Advance Health Care Directive is a legal document that allows you to make your healthcare wishes known ahead of time in case you can't speak for yourself. This prevents any conflict or confusion during an already stressful time. And it's also important for the funeral home and cemetery to have this because it designates who's going to make that decision of your remains. Right, Scott?
Exactly, yes.
And especially if you have already lost a spouse, or if you're not married, or you don't have any next of kin as far as children or siblings. So, even in the event if both you and your spouse were to pass, you have to designate a family member or a friend you trust to respect your wishes. And the goal is to set this up ahead of time, and it gives you control over your medical and end-of-life decisions, because you don't want to leave anything left in question. And It also allows your family and your loved ones just to focus on the grieving and healing and honoring your life. So I'm going to let Scott share an experience that he's had and he's seen, and I'll also share some of my thoughts about that. But I'm going to let Scott go ahead and start.
Okay, thank you. So for us, an Advance Health Care Directive is used for a lot of things: medical care, just general day-to-day care for a loved one. Where it really does apply to us is when somebody has passed and we're getting ready to make our arrangements. Mm-hmm. So whether you're a funeral home or a cemetery, an Advanced Health Care Directive for us gives us clear guidance from an individual. Sometimes there's multiples, but there's contingents. And it really does help us to be able to provide the service to a family that they expect without a lot of challenges from multiple family members. So I can share a numerous amount of examples where an Advanced Health Care Directive was there in place and really did benefit the family, and then times when that wasn't something that the family thought about, and it became very challenging to try and work with multiple people at times that don't get along or don't spend time together, and they need to come together in a very short period of time and make a lot of decisions that don't always agree. So I think for me, some of those where an example is, let's say you have 4 or 5 children.
Right.
They might get along, but when you are in a medical crisis or if somebody has passed, there's a lot of emotions that come to the table. There's a lot of baggage that might have been packed away that all of a sudden comes to the forefront, and agreeing and coming together on decisions becomes very challenging, which does stress out the family. Yeah. It makes it a lot more challenging to remember and honor their loved one in the way that they feel they should. So an Advanced Health Care Directive for us really does cut through a lot of the challenges and designates the person that you, as that person filling out the Advanced Health Care Directive, gets to appoint and say, this is my decision maker.
Right. I mean, I think you and I have both seen the stress of even just trying to locate a family member who has decided to detach themselves completely and being contacted. And I know that there's, scenarios where some people don't have any next of kin or anybody to contact. What would you recommend in those situations as far as how to set that up in advance if you know you don't have a next of kin?
Well, that's really a conversation that we have with almost anybody that's coming into our doors to discuss pre-planning. And that's the best time to do it, is before there's an issue, before there's an incident, you've thought through who will be the person that will make decisions when I can no longer do that. It might be an immediate family member. It might be a neighbor. It might be a professional. There are professionals out there that will advocate for you and set those documents in place. So having a document, an Advanced Health Care Directive, there's no age limit, in my opinion, other than being an adult, because accidents happen. And outside of what we need for us as far as funeral and cemeteries, there's still the hospital. There could be minor procedures, any number of things that you might be incapacitated and cannot speak on your behalf. And having an Advanced Health Care Directive would be a godsend to not only the people who are trying to save you, but also the designated people to come in and clearly make those suggestions and guide the healthcare professionals or us in the funeral and cemetery profession.
Right. And, thank you, Scott, for sharing that. And for those of you who are just tuning in, this is Journey Home Radio, and we're talking about how to ease the stress and financial burden of your loved ones by setting up these important documents before it's too late. If at any time you'd like to reach us at Singing Hills, you're welcome to join us in person, and we would love to give you one of our legacy planners, but you can follow us at singinghillsmemorialpark.com. You can also call us directly at 619-444-3000. Scott and I are discussing important documents, and one of the things that we kind of wanted to touch base on is there's a lot of paperwork when somebody passes, and when we're about to start those first arrangements. And some of the documents that we need are to complete a death certificate and any prepaid funeral and cemetery contracts. So I'm going to let Scott maybe talk a little bit about what to bring in for the death certificate when you're going to a mortuary, and then what we need here at the cemetery and what we don't really need.
Okay, thank you. So for the cemetery, we're not as procedural on what we need documentation. A death certificate is filed by a mortuary on behalf of the family, so they do require a lot of documentation. But one of our main goals is to not only educate families about what they need for us, also what they need for mortuaries. The death certificate, is required. Obviously, we need legal names, we need date of birth, a few things that are on it that might be difficult for families without talking to their loved one would be like if you're a spouse and you're married, we would need to know your mother's maiden name, where she was born, your father, where he was born. A lot of this is to gain information for historics, just so that the state of California, in our case, understands who you are, where you came from, and your lineage, so that it can be passed on to future generations if they want to come and inquire about that. So there's a lot of things that are required that go into the death certificate, then notifying Social Security Administration. If you were in the military and you would like honors, we would need documentation for that, a DD-214 or some type of separation paperwork. So there's a lot of things that a family would need to bring in that they might not know when they come for that first arrangement. So that's one of our goals, is to really lay out what's needed, why, and how to prepare that all in one compact process.
Right. And I know, Scott, you worked previously in what we call a combo location, where there's a mortuary and a cemetery, and I'm sure you've seen that stress where the families have, they don't have those documents intact, but I'm sure you've seen some good experiences out of people pre-planning and making sure that those arrangements. And one of the things that we offer here at Singing Hills is a legacy planner. And the legacy planner is just a wonderful tool to help organize those questions that Scott had mentioned, the legal name, the birthplace, and how to keep all those documents together. But there's also a really special letter inside our legacy planner that states that these are the wishes that I set in place to ease that transition from being present to now I'm here and I can't give you those answers. Right, Scott?
Absolutely. I like to look at it as a roadmap.
Right.
It basically will lay out everything that you thought would be important, not only if it's documentation importance, but even service importance, music, flowers, anything that you might want to share with your loved ones. The legacy planner is an all-encompassing document that starts that conversation. You do need a professional to actually review it and talk to you about it and really start stimulating that conversation through some questions from us, a lot of sharing from you, so that we can understand you and your needs specifically and really make that legacy planner personalized to you, so that when your family does need to open that up and come in and make those arrangements, they feel that love. They feel that information is there, and it provides them so much more relief than not having anything and coming through our doors just uncertain.
Right. I agree. It is always when the family brings in or the spouse brings in that document and it's already written on there. I mean, it's amazing that, when people finally take the time, and that's why here at Singing Hills, we will set an appointment with you to go over filling that out and making sure we have those conversations. But, there's always going to be that one person that doesn't want to have that conversation. They're not ready. They're especially, I've unfortunately, when somebody becomes terminally ill, I've seen that also where, one spouse is really trying to make this happen and the other one is like, I don't want to have anything to do about it. So what would your advice be, Scott, for somebody who's hesitant to pre-plan?
Well, there's a general advice and then there's specific advice I've given. I've literally been in homes with parents when they invite their kids over for dinner and don't tell them I'm going to be there. I've gone to libraries. I've gone to homes. I've gone almost anywhere that somebody feels comfortable to hear this message. And sometimes you're sneaking in and you're having this conversation with a family because most children, if you think about it, they're cared for and they're raised by their parents. And then when their parents start getting older, they feel beholden, they feel that love that they want to take care of their loved one, but they have no idea how to do it.
Right.
So that's one of the things about the legacy planner that starts that conversation. And through that legacy planner is where we do advise on the Advance Health Care Directive. For us personally, we print out the state's Advance Health Care Directive in English and in Spanish. Okay. And we have conversations with all of our families about who's going to be that person, especially if they have multiple children.
Right.
And if the children live in different states.
Right.
So we really do start that legacy planner as that first start conversation and really just move forward with that. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of families that don't even know what they want until we start talking to them.
That's so true. I see it all the time. I mean, I get phone calls and I have even just discussions when I'm out in public and people ask you, like, well, what do you do for work? And sometimes I'm a little hesitant depending on the person. I think that there is a little bit of a superstitiousness about when you mention our line of work. But once I start talking about the benefits and the importance of pre-planning and then sharing my experiences of witnessing people who haven't done that. And I think in my family, I had mentioned in previous episode, my aunt was really big on making sure that everybody was protected. And she bought multiple spaces for my grandparents and some of my aunts and uncles who are not married or don't have any connections with children, or they don't have a next to kin. So she was really good about taking care of that. And you really do see the difference. Because I actually went in with my family when my aunt passed to do those arrangements. And of course, I lived with her at one point, and I sat there and talked to her, and it was a little strange because it was my profession, and and thinking about it now in hindsight, when it came time to have her services, there really wasn't a question.
Yeah.
I mean, she had everything prepared, and my aunt would go to the mortuary and just always kind of make sure that everything was set in place. And that's why we strongly encourage people to come in. If you are a listener and you have purchased property with us at Singing Hills, we always recommend coming in and having a file review.
Yes, exactly. Just touching base with us and making sure that our records are up to date, and us knowing that everything's taken care of on your behalf. I always like to tell the staff that realistically, you think of a cemetery or a funeral home mortuary as there when you need them. And that, in my opinion, is about 20% of our mission. Really, 85% of our mission is going into the community and educating them before they need to walk through our doors. We do that in so many different ways. We go to health fairs, aging fairs. I go to churches and educate the leadership. We go to hospice centers and educate them, because they really are on the front lines with families when they get a diagnosis or they experience a loss. They go to wherever they're comfortable, and we feel so passionately that the message needs to be clear and helpful to that family member, that we always strive to be out in our community and just get the message. And it is uncomfortable sometimes, but it's very few families that I've ever had a conversation with, and at the end they said, well, I don't need this, because the reality is everybody's going to need this.
Right. And, like there's a saying, I've heard the saying in the very, very beginning of my career, and it's, death holds no prejudice. So we are all going to at some point pass, and at some point somebody is going to have to prepare our funeral decisions and our cemetery needs. So we actually have a couple events coming up, and we're going to be having a booth at one of the local health fairs in El Cajon this Saturday, the September 27th. And then myself, I will be hosting a watercolor workshop the same day as Saturday, September 27th at noon, in Chula Vista at the Chula Vista Art Festival. And I'll have an information booth. So you might be listening right now, but please, if you're in those areas, stop by, say hi to us. We're also going to be having a couple future events in October, and we'll let Scott talk about those.
Well, first I want to say that one of the things that I love about Iris is that she's a professional artist. And she always looks for ways to bring in any skill set that she has, and so does all the other staff. So she loves watercolors. We actually have watercolor events at our property. We have a beautiful property with 65-acre natural wildlife preserve that we set aside. So that's the backdrop to our cemetery. And she'll have a class, and we get all the resources for people. We want this conversation so badly that we'll bring people to our cemetery. We'll either give them food, have a dinner on us, or a lunch and learn. With her, it's the art and painting, and it's very therapeutic because people do come out that just recently experienced a loss, and they just want a connection.
Yeah.
And then there's people that want to break down the stigma of a cemetery, and they want to learn this, but it has to be in the right kind of setting to entice them to come. So I really do admire Iris for taking a passion of hers and something she's really good at and sharing that with the community, and along that same line, educating them about the needs of having this conversation in advance.
And just like Scott had mentioned earlier, this conversation's not easy to have. It's not easy. It was not easy for me to approach my own parents about it. I'm still trying to pre-plan both my mother and father. And my goal is to make people comfortable with it. It's like when you start something you don't like. When you're going to the gym, you hate it. You're tired. You don't like it. You don't understand it. But the more that you go, the more that you learn, the more comfortable you feel. And then towards the end, or once you've reached a goal, you have that self-satisfaction. And I look at pre-planning the same way. You have to take it in baby steps. Yeah. It's a lot to digest. There's so much knowledge out there. And there's also a lot of misinformation too. There's a lot of people that have stigmatisms about the death care industry. And, there's a lot of people now with social media and just overexposing. But really what it is for me and my mission is just to educate people. And it doesn't matter how old you are or what age you are, because at some point in time, whether you're recluse or not, or you are not a social person, I guarantee you're going to lose somebody close to you.
Yes.
And whomever that is, if you're the one that's responsible and taking care of their decisions, I mean, it's very important as to why we're discussing these documents today. So I'm going to just kind of revisit the Advance Health Care Directive is an act of love and stewardship. And by making your wishes clear, you're protecting your family from difficult decisions and allowing them to walk in peace, faith, and healing when God calls you home. And I truly believe that there's something very special about making sure that you have all of that information. And that's why we at Singing Hills, we offer that legacy planner. And we would love for you to come and visit. We'd love to give you a park tour. We'd love for you to come sit down. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to us at singinghillsmemorialpark.com, or you can reach us directly at 619-4 444-3000. And Scott, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I was glad to be here.
Thank you. Yeah. And again, you guys, we have a couple events coming up next month in October. We're going to be having a dinner on us. And we'll also be having a death cafe. So we'll be making those announcements in the next coming episodes. And we'd love for you to come out and meet us and join us. And again, thank you all for tuning in to Journey Home Radio. I'm your host, Iris Wise, and have a blessed day.
Thank you for listening to Journey Home Radio. We look forward to talking with you again next Saturday at noon right here on K-Praise.